Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Distorted Podcast. Today's topic, I want to talk a little bit about the disruption of routine, and in the context, since it's appropriate, after the holidays, right? So you have routine, and then you break it up by doing something like holidays, and then you go back to routine. It's like vacation almost. Anytime you're disruptive of the homeostasis, the habitual behaviors that we all engage in to, be satisfactory in our days. We all have a baseline that we choose so we can function, And day to day, you do some of the similar things, you have patterns in the morning, you have patterns when you get home from work. And these are all things that we use to stabilize ourselves, to bring familiarity and to comfort ourselves. Adjustment basically. And there's people who have adjustment disorder where they have a hard time with this type of thing. So we talk about why this exists on maybe a distortion level, because I like distortions. It's one of my things. But holidays. So you're prepping for engagement in activity. For most people, obviously there's outliers of people who have get-togethers at their home when it's not the holidays. They have Thanksgiving dinners all the time. They just call it something else. But for the rest of us, we don't do big things like that. And, clean the house, but not, toothbrush clean the house. So you have this extra layer of engagement to build an atmosphere and an environment that's different than the normal, the routine. So that might be with the cleaning and what you cook and rental of items, or whatever. You might rent an environment. You might go to a place where you have to rent a hall, or there's that many people showing up, like we would for a wedding or something. So all of this breaks routine. That's the bottom line. All this breaks you from things that you would habitually do. And this is positive and negative, right? So if you're prepping for the baby, it's breaking routine to create a new routine, which will involve the new life. So there's prep that has to go into changing the environment from no baby to baby. And that's usually a permanent change, especially if you consider how long you have to really oversee that child's care in that new environment. And if you have a second child, it extends even further. So, when we talk about changing routine, that could mean you're creating a new one, in which case you would move on. You would no longer be focused on the fact that routine changed. You'd create a new baseline, and that's fine. That's one version of this. With a holiday, that's not the case. It's temporary. It's short term. It's going to be short term, and there's a plan built into that. In the simple things, you put up decorations, you have to take them down. Some people don't. You create a new baseline where you have a tree up all the time. That's like the thing people are talking about. A year-round tree. I don't get it, but oh well. I don't think we need a Halloween tree and an Easter tree and all this other stuff. A Valentine's tree. Anyways, you change the environment specifically for the event that's coming up. You change the routine. Whatever space has been taken away, it's been replaced with a temporary thing. You change everything. And I want you to understand how important this is. When people have to overcome addiction, like smoking addiction, they're not just overcoming the addiction of the cigarette, they're overcoming the patterns of behavior that go along with the addiction. And I think for some people, you already know this, but for some people, this is a new concept. If you've ever been around a smoker, they pack the cigarette pack. There's a cellophane that has to be torn off the top. There's all this preparation that goes into the purchase and the prep for smoking that is a part of the addiction. It's part of the behavior. Tobacco chew, having to open the can and pinch it and tuck it and all this other stuff into your lip. And it's small things to maybe someone looking at it like that shouldn't matter. To the person who's going through the habitual process, it's all part of the prep. It sets them up for what's going to come when they consume the item. This is important. Drinking, same thing. Who's there? Where do you sit? How do you pop the bottle open? What do you, all of this stuff is habitual pattern. I'll give you my example. I drink Dr. Pepper Zero. Shout out to Dr. Pepper, I guess. When I open up the can, I don't like the opener. I wiggle it till I tear it off. I just don't like it being there. If I have to drink out of the can, I don't have a cup. That's my preference. It's habitual at this point. I open up the can and habitually I'm immediately wiggling the little lid thing to pull it off. Okay? That's just part of my routine. It's part of my comfort. That's before I've consumed any of the Dr. Pepper Zero. That's just my prep to get to the Dr. Pepper. I have to wiggle that little piece off. That's part of my routine, and it starts the soothing process that I have adapted to having a can of Dr. Pepper. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, because you do this. I promise you, you do this. You out there, you do this. It's just different or the same. You could have the same thing that I do, and you can picture yourself wiggling that little lid right now. So everybody's got these things, and it's part of the prep of the soothing mechanism for the coping mechanism. It's part of the habitual, puts us in a stasis of feeling in control, being at peace. This is all good stuff. You disrupt that, whether it's for a good or bad reason, and you have to make an adjustment for that new environment. The people that are going to be brought into that environment, how long you're going to sustain that change in your environment. For some people, it's, again, they've turned it into a positive. It's like going on vacation. I'm going somewhere different, new environment, new things to see, new places to walk, new food to eat, whatever it is. And it's intended to be different. It's intended to break routine, to allow you distance from what you've created habitually. And for a lot of people, what happens when the vacation ends is there's a sense of comfort going back into your environment. You'll hear people use the analogy of, I'm back in my own bed. The idea being that there's really a strong connection to our baseline, to what we do to function, okay? If you've ever talked to somebody who takes this to the extreme and might have a wee bit of obsessive compulsive component, they will tell you that everything they're doing is all a part of that same system. I would argue against that. I would say that sometimes it goes too far. But it's the same concept. It's comfort. It's soothing. It's creating your space or going back into your space after having been removed from it, whether you did it intentionally or not. So even though vacation was exciting because it was new and also because you didn't have to necessarily clean up after yourself. Let's not forget that. It's new, it's a different environment. It's being in a different experience that you don't always get to have. And so you really are in the moment. You're really enjoying that. But there's also enjoyment when you go back to the routine that you've had, the comfort that comes from it, okay? You even can miss it. You don't miss it to the point where you say, I'll never go on vacation again. But you miss it to the point of your functioning improves when you're in a stabilized environment. You'll hear people say, clean house, clean mind, or clean mind, clean house, whatever. And then now they're in a position where they feel like they can think better. Some people, they want the chaos because they think better when they're not overthinking. And so however you go about it, it's the idea that you have a baseline, that you have stability in that. So going back to the first concept, this idea of the holidays, if it's a good experience, you end up with a lot of dopamine drops and hits, that's the real good chocolate, right? And you end up with feeling good about a lot of pieces that you've experienced. You got to see family and friends that maybe you don't see during the year, and it really boosts you up. You get to go to a location that you're probably only going to go there once, and it boosts you up. You're going to experience a concert or some other holiday-related thing. It's one time only. It boosts you up. So you get all this extra emphasis during those times. And it can be artificially confusing because I'm feeling really good about this, and there's absolutely no way to repeat it. And when you go back into the comfort that's supposed to be comfort, there's a piece missing because it's not as exciting and it's not as motivating. It's not pushing you. So if you regulate yourself to your routine as a negative instead of the comfort and stability that it actually is, again, you have choices here. You get to decide which way you want to go with this. Is it okay to feel a little bit of a letdown? Yes. And so that letdown can turn into something far worse if you don't really practically look at why you have a letdown. You're doing the non-sustainable because you had sustainability. You saved up money because you were stabilized, so you could go do something exciting outside your norm. It's not to be maintained. I don't know why this popped in my head, but ADD is a terrible thing to waste. Child actors oftentimes fail terribly later on in life. There's just no way to repeat what they've created. Now, that might sound like an abstract connection, but it's there if you see it. It's there. Too much, overwhelmingly, you can't duplicate that, but you can't also, you lose stability when you're in that. You think that's something you want forever, and then you realize the reason why it was so exciting to begin with is because you had the stability to go back to afterwards. You have a comfort level. You know where you stand in your own environment, and you can succeed in that own environment. You know how to push yourself. You know how to be relaxed in it. And I think this is huge, guys, because this is the whole point of taking a vacation, is that you're removing yourself from the stability and comfort, but you're doing it temporarily. It's not sustainable. It's exciting, and it's meant to be. It's fun. It's meant to be. I'm not doing my responsibilities while I'm on vacation. I'm still, hopefully, you're still taking a shower and brushing your teeth. That's part of habitual stabilizing. That's part of comfort. But what you're not doing is you're not having to fill up a fridge with food, or you're not having to, maybe you don't make the bed while you're on vacation. There's other things that you are forgoing because you're going to take time to enjoy yourself and do things that are more fanciful, not regimented. Then there's a give and take to this system, right? This vacation becomes exciting because you get to do it occasionally. Going back to stability is very important. Why I think, again, ADD is a terrible thing to waste. Why do people in Hollywood struggle to maintain a relationship? Because they don't have to. They get access to a new thing and a new person every 5 days. And what's the point of stability unless you've made it important, unless you believe it to be important, unless you see something in it. But if I can replace that with more excitement and different excitement, well, then that's probably what's going to happen, right? There's a difference in that, and I probably could do a whole podcast on 31 flavor theory that I have, and I probably will. It's difficult when you fill yourself with the idea that you're always going to be in constant renewal. You'll see young people go through this. Everything is new to them because they're seeing it for the first time or exposing themselves to it for the first time. So with the anxiety of that anticipatory event, there's also the excitement of renewal. It's new to me, so I'm going to dive in and engage in it, and then I figure out that I don't like it or I do like it, and I try to repeat it. And stability has to come from that at some point. And for most of them, they get there. Takes them a few years, but they get to stability because they realize the stability is what provides for the fun later on. It's what allows them to have access to the opportunities, that they have some place that they can fall upon, and they have to replace what their parents offered them with their own stability, right? That's the whole jump. I go from the routine of having someone else carry the heavy load, take the big decisions off my shoulders, to that part being removed, and you have to create a new routine. Remember what I said about like having children? You have a child, you create a new routine because the baby isn't going anywhere. Hopefully. When you leave the nest, you're moving into your own stability. It's a new routine. You no longer have the parents to rely on unless they're lawnmower parents and they don't go away, in which case you're forcing them out of your life because you want to create a new routine. Does that make sense? So again, all this stuff can go in different directions. So there's not a one size fits all. When you engage in holiday activities, typically the ones we're talking about, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, gap of time, you're doing things out of the ordinary. Some people have time off from work, depending on what they do. So you're not working. You may not have the money to go on vacation, but you're not working. So you're still out of your normal routine. And that's huge for a lot of people. COVID disrupted people tremendously because their stability was being taken away from them. The sanctity of being at home as a comfort became antagonistic because you were home all the time. There was no separation in which to compare the two things with. Stability became less stable because you had nothing to compare it against. You were in it all the time. Sedentary behavior does not lend itself to healthy. So the removal from the comfort is necessary to actually experience the comfort. Okay, great. I hope we all get this. So if I go on vacation, yeah, it's exciting. There's going to be a little bit of a drop off when you leave that environment and you go back into routine. It's replaced by a different kind of value. It's replaced by a different kind of feeling. The letdown has to be addressed if it doesn't go away. That could be just a simple cognitive distortion of telling yourself that your regular standard day should feel the same as your vacation day in Hawaii. That might just need to be challenged as a distortion, right? That the build up to your wedding and then the honeymoon's over and then you're just with that person might not feel the same excitement as it once did. The itch that people get later on in life is because you haven't created a healthy understanding of what that stability provides you. Instead, you end up resenting it. Please don't go that route. Don't get to a point where the stability and comfort that you've created becomes resentful to you. It's ridiculous to think you're supposed to live your life exciting every day because every day you're jumping off cliffs. Adrenaline junkies are just that. It's not maintainable until they push themselves to the extreme, where oftentimes they end up harming themselves, and very difficult to find someone else to fit into that stability, right? The more extreme you get with the way you approach life, the more difficult it is to match up other people in that life. No stability and comfort means that another person has to also give that up to stay in your environment. Good luck. You can try that if you want. I guess it works for some people, but a very small percentage. But you lose the ability to maintain space with someone else if everything you're always chasing after has to be some type of dopamine drop. That's a very difficult way to go. And I have met people in that environment. Oftentimes they get caught up in very unhealthy behaviors. And I'm saying through the lens of drugs and sex is usually where I see it. I've seen people lose their lives to that for obvious reasons, because they get so caught up in not being able, you've heard the term chase the dragon, because the first hit is never the same. It's always less, because your body gets used to that exposure, and it ends up being not as exciting. You dive deeper into those worlds. That's why it's become such a horrible thing for society. I don't want to get off on that tangent too much, but hopefully you can see that for where I was going with that. It becomes very difficult to sustain that because you have no stability. You have no baseline. You're continually chasing something because your baseline is based on what you're chasing. Okay? And that's a hard way to go. The letdown is normal, but it shouldn't be disruptive. If it is, get some support. If your letdown is destroying the comfort and stability that you had, get some support. Talk to some people about that. It doesn't have to be professional help, but just process that experience. Something unique must have happened to cause you to go to a darker place where that letdown is throwing you off your game to where you can't function again. Going back to work shouldn't be a punishment. It's provision for your stability. If you hate your job that much, you probably hated your job that much before you went on vacation. That's a whole nother issue. But going back to routine doesn't mean that you've given up and that you're somehow now boring. That's not the case at all. It's that functionality that allows other people to thrive around you. I supervise volunteers. I have a whole team of people. I cannot show up flaky. I cannot show up disorganized. I cannot show up without stability because they're relying on me to give some sense of, hey man, this is working and we're doing good stuff here, as opposed to, I have no idea what's going on, someone bail me out. That does not breed confidence amongst people that are counting on you. Stability and comfort, so I can push myself, so I can take chances, so I can risk things, so I can enjoy the highs that come from being in a new environment, having time away from the routine. That's the whole point. There's a balance to all of this, right? And who told you had to have fun every day? I don't know. I guess I'm old school that way. Sometimes you're just in it. You're just providing for someone else. You're just being stable for someone else, and they get a good time, and you get to watch them have that good time. We do it with children all the time. I might be watching the game, but I might be super tired. My eyes might close once or twice. I might not see every dribble. I might not see every pass, but I'm there and I'm doing it because I know they're enjoying it and they're learning from it. And so again, the letdown after the holidays, I think we want to normalize this. The distortion is that you would just flow back into everything without some little hiccup. I think if you have a nice, lovely conversation about that with the person you experienced it with, I think you can get through that relatively quickly and without a lot of harm, recognizing that stability and comfort is also important to you. I have a rocking chair that I really do enjoy, and it brings me a lot of joy to be able to sit in that chair after a long day and read a book and maybe have a sport, have a game on in the background. That's my stability, my comfort, my routine, that I don't want that to be disrupted. That doesn't mean that I need or want to have that be always the thing that I need to do in order to bring peace to myself, but it is a large part of my stability. And so again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having things that you do, like my little Dr. Pepper routine that I pull that tab off before I drink the soda. Nothing wrong with that. It's part of what grounds us, if you will. It's part of what gets us familiar. Knowledge of self, very powerful. To know thyself, right? To be able to have some sense of, when I'm praying and when I'm going through my day, that pattern is for me to feel grounded in what makes me strong. And then every once in a while, I'll risk it with a new environment or do something exciting for the contrast and for the fun of it, and which is totally, totally fine. You launch the rocket comes back down at some point. I played music for a long time. Of course, absolutely loved the live performance. But you can't have a live performance every time you play the instrument. There has to be some comfort and stability that comes from your expression through that music without having an audience. And that's not to discount the audience at all. It's just to say that to functionally think that every time I play my instrument that I'm going to have an audience or I'm going to be playing live is just, it's not reality. Part of the development to be able to get the privilege of playing live music is that you oftentimes are playing music for yourself or with just the people in that band, that no one sees it, no one hears it. And I get good enough to where someone actually wants to see it and hear it. That's the idea, right? So that's a metaphor for this, an analogy for this. All right, so I think I've kind of run the course on this one. I'm going to let you guys go for the next one. If you have any ideas about what you want to see, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and we'll see you on the next. Thanks for joining us on Distorted. Follow us however you can, but primarily we're on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Pod, and Spotify. Add a comment, share it with your friends. We appreciate you.